I think it's our deepest need as humans is belonging and this belonging to and this tribal aspect of ourselves here in this life. And that's the human aspect of us. That's the human self.
Yeah.
We need each other. We are not only social creatures, but we protect one another. We have built what we've built as a human species with each other and sharing knowledge and protecting one another. And it's all very deeply encoded in us. And it wasn't until I really developed that deep relationship with my higher self and with Source that I realized I'm never alone.
Hello and welcome back to the Joyous Path to Millions podcast with me, your host, Emily June Wilcox. This episode is for you if you are wanting to step into your higher purpose or add more meaning into your life, or wanting to explore the deeper wisdom and connection to your soul and how that interplays in your work and in what you're meant to be doing here on this planet. So in case you're new to the show, I am a serial entrepreneur, a 7-figure business owner, a #1 best-selling author, and the creator of the Money Wound Healing Movement. I live in Southern California with my husband and 2 kiddos, and I'm on a mission to put more money in the hands of soulpreneurs through healing money wounds, building abundant businesses, and balancing masculine and feminine energy. I really believe that when we do this, we up-level the frequency of the planet, and we help usher in new paradigm wealth. And I'm so happy to be joined today by Corissa Saint Laurent. And she is a multi-passionate keynote speaker, podcaster, entrepreneur, and transformational facilitator who's focused on creating greater meaning, higher purpose, and true joy. And she inspires people to think, feel, and act in their highest good, to integrate their wholeness, to lead with their soul, and expand in consciousness. So, Corissa, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Such a pleasure, Emily. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this conversation. And I guess I'm always so curious, like the origin story behind this work. What journey did you go on to get to your own place of discovering, wait, this is my mission. This is what I'm meant to be doing in this lifetime.
It's a coming back home story, really, because we all enter into this world and into these lives carrying that wisdom. And I've found that my journey has been all about getting back to that place, getting back to that knowing, getting back to my truth, getting back to who I really am. So the story of that started in Korea. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and I was given up for adoption when I was 3. So I was there with my birth mother until that age and don't remember her, but I know this story now. Yeah. And then I was raised in the United States, brought here, had an experienced on the surface, a normal childhood, a happy middle-class childhood that seemed just fine. I was successful. I was a straight A student. I was a cheerleader. I had lots of friends, but inside I was dying. And I didn't really realize this until I got to that rock bottom of that moment of feeling, honestly, in a number of experiences, because I brought myself there. My human brought me to the understanding of you're dying inside. You are so far from who you are right now. You are so far from your truth, but we need to remind you of that. And so I put myself in all sorts of situations to remind myself of that through drug use and abuse and alcohol abuse and very much limiting my human expansion. But it was necessary. It was absolutely necessary to wake me up and to be like, this is what you're wasting. This is what you are doing. And again, I didn't know I was doing any of that until I hit a rock bottom. And that rock bottom was the beginning of the climb back up. It's never, rock bottom realization, and now everything's fixed and beautiful and perfect. It was the opening, the portal to the work, the real work.
How old were you when you hit rock bottom?
I was 19, 20, and I was in college, again, like achieving on all the external markers of success. I was at a great university, doing well. From the outside, maybe people wouldn't notice this, but I was for the first time in my life, suicidal at around 19 years old, was deeply involved in drug use. I don't know if I'll go so far as to say drug addiction, because it's not like I felt like I needed it, but some aspect of me needed it, or I wouldn't have been doing it so much. It wasn't like I needed it to wake up or get through the day, but certainly some part of me needed those drugs and alcohol to feel okay or to do my life. And some other part of me, the higher self part of me, led me to a study abroad office. Literally, I showed up in this office and it almost came I almost came to like of where you might wake up from a coma and you're like, how did I get here? And I was in the study abroad office, not really knowing how I got there.
Wow.
And looking around, and not also because I was a very insecure teenager, like not wanting to also look stupid. So they're asking me, can we help you? Are you interested in programs? Are you interested in studying abroad? And I was just like, oh no, I'm just looking. Not even knowing what I was doing there. So I'm just looking around and I end up getting this pamphlet or brochure. This is pre-internet age. Everything's in paper. And I walked away with that again, not knowing what that meant and realizing my higher self was taking me on a journey. And I just was so desperate and so lost at the time that thankfully I was easily led on that journey. And led into this process of applying, doing everything I needed to do. I had to get my grades up. I had to have a certain GPA to even be able to apply. I had to interview. So I had to clean up my act. Even though I was at this university, I had dropped my pre-med major. I was struggling in certain classes. I wasn't doing as well as I certainly could have been doing. And flash forward 6 months, 9 months, however long it was, a year maybe later from that period, I was in New Zealand studying abroad and on my first trip solo hiking. And I had this moment of awakening, a moment of expanded consciousness of where I knew that I was part of a oneness that was all things and that I was a part of that. And yet this like infinitesimal, meaningless piece of it, but that I was all of it at the same time. It was just this.
Yeah.
And everything around me when this opening happened disappeared except for light and just this feeling of love. And I knew that's what I had been missing this whole time was love that I had lost in my story, lost through my adoption but then that I kept away for so long because I was so afraid to be loved. I was so afraid to let love in because I could lose it again and I could be abandoned again. So it was the love that was missing. It was the love that I so deeply craved. And it was what I knew I needed to get back to in my own heart. And I got the gift of experiencing universal love in that moment, which is just, if you've ever experienced that before, it's the same as if you're a parent and what happens when you have that baby and you look at that baby and you hold that baby. It's the same kind of feeling, but it was also coupled with literally I was floating in light and could have stayed there. I wanted to stay there to some degree, but then I knew that was a choice point. I could stay here and leave my body, or I could come back down to earth and do the work. And as soon as I made that choice, like I want to do the work. And all of this happened in earthly time, seconds, but felt like this expanded, timeless moment. And then I got to work, and the work has and is hard. It's not one of those easy choices to make, but in the realization that I came here to do this work, my higher self knows that and is here to guide me on it, has allowed that work to be really beautiful and joyful. rather than the struggle that it used to be.
Yeah. I'm curious. I know I've had experiences in the past where in meditation, I've felt so close to soul alignment and just that energy of oneness and everything's okay and it's timeless and it's spaceless. And then coming back into the human experience after that, like eyes are open and it was like the worst whiplash where it's, wait, now I'm back here and I'm in this body. And what the hell am I supposed to do with the contrast of these experiences? I'm curious if you had any of that or if you intuitively felt like, oh, I just need to continue moving toward this feeling.
It was both, but absolutely major whiplash, it's a roller coaster that I chose to step onto. And I went into more deep, dark places, darker than even maybe the depths of the drug abuse. It was going into and excavating the soul. That's the work. It is excavating out from all of the boundaries, barriers, excuses, protections, all of this that I had built up and created. And that can seem like, oh, you're putting all the blame on yourself. But I had to realize at a certain point, yes, I was. At that, there's things that happened to me when I was a child. And I had no choice in that matter. But you get to a certain point in development and you realize, oh, I kept up with the victimization. I kept up the barriers of protection, which I needed at a certain time. But then there's also at a point when you don't need them anymore. And everyone gets to that point, hopefully, in this lifetime of realizing, I don't need that anymore. I no longer need the protection. I no longer need that guard. I no longer need to be defensive. I can let it all go. And so in that process, it's a fight. It's a struggle. I'm fighting with myself. I'm fighting with the inner guards and the inner demons. I'm fighting with the ones that want to protect me still and fighting with the ones that want to just give up and be that victim because it was easier to that part of me, but it wasn't obviously easier to the whole of me. So there's all sorts of reintegration that needs to happen. It is uncomfortable as hell. It is scary at times. And it was a fight. It's like a fight for your own life, fight to get back to that truth. I knew I was worth it at a certain point, right? So earlier in life, I didn't feel like I was worth it. And then as soon as I had this experience on that mountainside, I knew I was worth it because I knew I was the oneness and part of this grand design. But then I had to prove to myself that I was worth it through the work. And that's where there was a lot of moments that felt like giving up. And that I did. But then I would literally see myself bedraggled on the side of the road and go pick her up, slap her in the face and pull her back onto the path.
Yeah.
And it just was a series of that. So it got to a point, I would say, in my early 40s of where I finally went, oh, okay, I am ready. And I no longer need to do that part of the struggle. I no longer need to. And it was through a series of just healing those inner child wounds of the ones that still needed to struggle, the ones that still needed that attention, the ones that were and gained their power through that victimhood. Once I healed and at least recognized or honored and made a loving relationship with those aspects of myself, I quit drinking. But up until then, I was still party girl. And I had moments where when I decided to get pregnant and have a baby, it was no alcohol, no marijuana, no nothing. I'm just going to be clean, easy. I got pregnant in a month and a half and it was beautiful and it was wonderful. And I loved it. And I loved it through my early days of pregnancy. But then the wine crept back in. The mommy juice. It's like, oh, I need this to relieve the stress of being a mother. And
Yeah.
I had that story going on. Even though I didn't really have any stress around being a mother, I had the most perfect situation in being a mother. I had a stay-at-home dad, father, my husband staying home. I worked from home. I could be with my son all the time, had a house, had all the money I needed, but still created a situation of stress. And I realized that I created the stress so that I could drink. The other way around. And when that hit me, it was a really harsh realization, but then it was also a beautiful, compassionate moment. Why do you need this? Like, why do you need this drink? What is it? And it went back to this deep insecurity that I had and in this profound insecurity of being alone and being left alone, ultimately.
Yeah. Abandonment it's such a deep wound when it's there because it really signals to unconscious mind death. And even though that's not what actually was playing out in your story, and one could even argue that it was an act of unconditional love that you were given to another family where you could have a better life, there's still that hard coding of, if the person who's supposed to protect me leaves me, then I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the end of things. And so see it play out with a lot of my clients in their relationships with money and even employees. They'll hire someone good and then they're so worried that person's going to leave. And we just play it out in so many different ways until we're really ready to look at it and peel back that next layer of healing. So I just commend you for that because it's very deep emotional work.
I think it's our deepest need as humans is belonging and this belonging to and this tribal aspect of ourselves here in this life. And that's the human aspect of us. That's the human self. Yeah. We need each other. We are not only social creatures, but we protect one another. We have built what we've built as a human species with each other and sharing knowledge and protecting one another. And it's all very deeply encoded in us. And it wasn't until I really developed that deep relationship with my higher self and with Source that I realized I'm never alone. I am always divinely guided. I'm surrounded by the love of the universe and God. I am surrounded by each and every one. Even if I don't ever speak to that person over there or know that person over here, we are entwined. Energetically, we are one. And it is such a beautiful realization and a beautiful knowing that we're never without. But it all starts from that relationship with the self, because we can do all of what I was describing earlier to ourselves, of where we're strangers to ourselves. So that person, inner child, this part of you, the one that's been protecting it, all of these aspects of self can be unknown to us as our whole being. And that reintegration process of getting back to all of that is that very first step. So it's knowing, yes, you're part of this oneness and getting to experience that and being in that beauty is one thing. But then how does that play out in us? If we're still a fragmented mess, where we can float off into this beautiful oneness, but then you're just fragmenting out into that. You're into that spiritual nature of yourself. And a lot of spiritual people, I know, that's their medicine. That they'll go out into the spirit world to be connected to that because it feels so big and whole and amazing, which it does. But then they don't have that going on within themselves and know that they are the entire cosmos. They are all of that. And so that it becomes an escape into spirituality rather than we are spirituality. We are all of this.
Yes. It's so true because it is a form of escapism or numbing or whatever that in some respects is not that different than going to drugs or alcohol or scrolling social media or eating ice cream until the whole half gallon is gone. Like all of those are numbing. They're ways of disconnecting from the 3D reality and going somewhere else. And going into meditation is certainly not something that you're going to get a lot of finger wagging about. Like, it's probably one of the healthier ways. But I know for me, when I got to a place where when my eyes open after meditation, I just feel so good. And I don't feel that sharp contrast between the two experiences. I love going to the spirit realms, and then I love coming back into the 3D and being like, and this is my life. This is what I chose, and this is what I get to live, and this is what I get to continue co-creating and making better. That to me was such a powerful sign of alignment. And I think that's really what we want and what we're looking for, is not to go have these profound spiritual experiences and then come back into the body and feel like, this sucks.
Yeah.
No, we chose this. We wanted to be here. You know, the people you see that have done something really successful or out of the box and are living a life that you find really interesting and inspiring. Do you ever wonder how they think, or what's going on behind the scenes, how they make their decisions? I know I do. I've invested lots of money, at this point to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, to get access to people like this. Not because I want to copy paste what they're doing, but because I want to get to know how they think, what moves they're making behind the scenes. And of course, because we're energetic beings, first and foremost, their energy alters my energy for the positive. This is exactly what I do for you inside Soul Mission, my private podcast full of transmissions that cause you to feel inspired, expanded, and ready to take massive action that aligns with your dreams and goals. The only difference is that you don't have to invest hundreds of thousands to get it. In fact, you can binge for free for 3 days. Check the show notes to sign up, or DM me the word mission on Instagram to get the link and start letting my energy rub off on you.
That's the ultimate realization, is that we chose this, and getting to then go, I'm the one choosing this always. I'm choosing this moment. I'm choosing how I think, how I feel, how I am. I'm choosing all my actions. I'm choosing this life when we actually step into that responsibility. It's scary as hell. And that's why I think a lot of people don't do it, because it comes with the great power. With great power comes great responsibility things. But then if you don't take on that responsibility, you never gain the full power of this life and what we can do here, which leads to all the work that you're doing in the world, that we can create our dream lives. We can create the income that we need and want. We can create and live the life we want to live. And however that looks for any individual, it is within your power to do that. But it doesn't just happen because you wish it to. There is a lot of beautiful action that needs to take place. Some of it feels really harsh. Some of it hurts, but it's all beautiful. And I wouldn't trade up any of it. I love what I've walked. So in awe of the experience I've had here and what it's taught me. So I would never give it back. I wouldn't want to come into a different life. I've been in many different lives, but this one's been pretty awesome. And the place that I am now is going back to the realization of, and this ties deeply into money, going back to that place of where I finally saw really truly, because I knew, okay, I'm part of this oneness. Great. Felt it, experienced it, knew it, but I had to know it. I had to fully embody it, because it's that same as what you're describing. You open your eyes from the meditation and you're like, oh, now I'm back here. Okay, that means I'm a human being, and maybe that was a dream. Maybe that wasn't real. So it is the path between an awakening and a knowing, where you have to, not have to, but you get to experience this unfolding of truth, this unfolding of, oh, that is who I really am. It wasn't a dream. The 3D life and the 5D, the multidimensional life, is all one. And I'm experiencing all of that at the same time. not just when I close my eyes for meditation, or not just when I have this profound awakening or ayahuasca ceremony or whatever. It's not just in those moments. All those moments are happening all at the same time. And so is this, me typing on a computer or talking on a podcast, building a business. All of it is happening at the same time. And when you experience life from that place, it's truly from that higher self seat where you're now operating life from that soul-led perspective of where you get to wield things, move the pieces, actually get to shape things and understand, okay, we're going to go through this thing, but we're also going to learn this from it. And you see it all at once. It can be overwhelming at times, but it is the most profound seat to take. And that's what I finally got to in my practices of getting to this place of knowing that's who I really am. So that's like, you're not that one that opens the eyes back in the world. You're the one that knows that you're opening your eyes back in the world. You're the one that is recognizing that you have had these stories and experiences and seeing it from that perspective. So when I finally got there, it shifted things greatly. It was partly through healing work that I was doing both for myself, and I guess it was all about that. It was all about the healing work that I was doing for myself, but it was this expanding consciousness of I'm not just self anymore. I'm not self. I am all. And then what I did for myself was now impacting everything around me. And then you get into that magic shit where I am actually changing how other people act. How I am and what I'm doing is changing circumstances that seem so material, that seem so solid, but they're not, right? So that's when it starts to get super fun, and where the work, I think, now we are starting to change this material reality. And it's everything from money to relationships to circumstances. It's all the external, because it's all a reflection, really, right? It's all a reflection of how we're operating within, how we choose to see and create and be. Yeah. And then we get to put that out there in the world. And then we get to experience the material from the vision out here. So part of what was holding me back from experiencing the material and actually celebrating that was deeply tied to the story of abandonment. And I didn't realize this until I had gone through my own series, obviously within the healing, of healing money wounds, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So there's always been earning money on my own dime and earning money through my own power. I've been an employee also, but the vast majority of my life, I started as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur. So that you get to really reflect when you choose that path on your own creative power. Am I able to do this? Am I able to make a living? Am I able to keep a roof over my own head? Am I able to thrive and soar in this place? So I've always had that reflective experience because I chose the path of entrepreneurship. And it wasn't until later in the journey where I had a deep healing meditation. I'm trained in theta healing. And so it's something that you can do for self. It's something you can do with clients. But I was in a session with myself, and I had this download, this vision, this experience and what was a money wound and block that I didn't know I had at that point, of being purchased, because I was purchased by my family that raised me. And there's a dollar amount on that I know. I am consciously aware of what that dollar amount is. And I realized in that meditation that has kept me in this box of this dollar amount, that I was unconsciously being limited by this dollar amount that I was purchased with. Crazy.
What a powerful realization.
Yeah. We all, I think, have a certain idea, and it usually comes from our families of what we are worth financially because of what you are raised in,
Yeah.
what you grew up around, what your family could afford. So it's almost your
Yeah.
family can afford these things, and therefore I am valued in that way. And it imprints on all of us. We all have that. But I grew up in a fairly upper middle class situation. I never
Yeah.
wanted for anything. I got everything I wanted. I wasn't in a wealthy family, but I had everything I absolutely wanted, needed, asked for. It was in my own earning power that I realized that it was this, that I was blocking myself from fully earning what I want and what I'm worth because of that sticker price that I was, that was
Right.
put on me, at age 3. Again, not even realizing it, but there are many. I would say I'm still working through that one, even though that
Yeah.
happened, that realization happened, gosh, now probably 6 years ago, but still working through that one because it's so tied to the overall worth.
Yeah.
Why would anyone abandon a child when you, as a child, think, oh, because I'm not worthy of this, right? So it's tied to that deeper old wound, and there's so much opportunity there, so much opportunity to heal from that. And it's been a beautiful process, but also some of the most profound healing that I've done in the last 6 years. It's deep, scary, also very spontaneous. So I mentioned ayahuasca earlier. I've never done ayahuasca, so I don't know this firsthand, but I know that many people that have. I've also done psychedelics in the past, and so I certainly know what a psychedelic experience is like.
Yeah.
But when people describe the ayahuasca experience and what they go through, I can relate what I've gone through in the last, and this is more in the last 3 years, with an ayahuasca experience. Without ever having gone through that. Everything from the feelings of death, purging, psychedelic visions and experiences, all unassisted, all very spontaneous at times that were some of them were inconvenient. So I wasn't like in this beautiful container in the middle of Peru. I was like in front of a middle school and there's kids all around, and all of a sudden I'm like, and I'm on the ground. But they have been just exactly what I needed. And I know that I was ready for it because the universe doesn't serve you up what you're ready for until you are ready.
Yeah.
So I accepted it and I went with it. And thankfully, my husband was by my side to help protect me from what the earthly things that were going on were doing.
Yeah.
But it was really, really processing a lot and going through it, just going through the work.
Yeah. And as you were talking about earlier, these sort of dual perspectives of the soul and the human, I think put another way, it's like we're in the video game, but we're also co-creating the video game. And so there are these two different perspectives. One is being the player and one is being the creator. And when we go too far in the direction of being the player, then it can feel like just these bad things are happening to us. If you've ever been in a video game, it's like all of a sudden there are fireballs raining down from the sky. This is terrible. And then in the remembrance of, wait, but I'm co-creating the game, then we can change the experience and not be a victim of it.
Yes.
Right? And so you going through these layers of healing and recognizing all of the ways that your human has interpreted things and put your own cap on your worth as one example. And we all do this, but that's based on the perspective of being a victim of circumstance. This just happened to me. And then when you realize, wait a second, I made that mean something, and what I made it mean created a glass ceiling for myself. But because I created the glass ceiling, that also means that I have the power to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're back in that perspective of being the creator and being the soul and getting to reshape the human experience into something that is more powerful.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. Yeah. And going along your game analogy, it's like being the player in the game who knows where the trapdoors and the secret mushrooms are and knows where all of them, like where to go to get to that next level. I do think that as humans that have chose this 3D experience, we also choose to forget sometimes of where it all is, because wouldn't it be boring to just know exactly where everything's going to go and what's going to happen and where all the prizes are? You're just like, I finished the game in 2 seconds because I know all of this. And so I think what we do here is that we go through almost like a self-hypnosis of forgetting what we truly are so that we can experience the fun. It doesn't always feel fun, but the fun of having that full human experience, the full depth of pain, the full depth of celebration and joy. And you can't have one without the other. Whatever range it exists in your life, you can't have one without the other. So it is when you realize that too, then, I'm putting myself back to sleep sometimes in order to actually.
Yeah, so I get to experience waking back up.
Yeah, like I'm going to erase that. I'm going to go back to level 1 and go back through this in a different way. And maybe I'll find new doors and find new pathways to that same thing. And that's that co-creative part of where you actually carve out new paths to maybe even the same place you've always been or that you have been before. But in walking that new path there, you live out a new experience that teaches you other things that you needed to learn. And it's just so multi-layered and beautiful. And
it is. Well, and when I asked you your journey, you basically said it's been a journey of remembrance.
Yeah.
And I think that perfectly puts a bow on this conversation, which is we intentionally forget so that we can experience the remembrance in a new way. And it's like the Ram Dass quote, we're all just walking each other home. And it's such a beautiful visual of community. And also, there's not just one way to walk home, right? So we get to try those choose your own adventure, different paths, and experience the different scenery. But we're all just going home. We're going back to that remembrance of who and what we truly are.
Yeah. And in one lifetime, you can walk many paths home.
Yes.
Walk many and may have many different experiences, live many different lives in one lifetime. And then think about all the other lifetimes that you've lived and led, if that's something that resonates with you.
Yeah.
I know that to be true because I remember those things and I can go back to those things. It is mind blowing the amount of experience that we get to have. And it's such an honor. So to give up on that experience, to say, I'm going to go back to sleep and stay asleep, or I'm just not going to do the work because it's too hard, it's just denying yourself of that lived experience. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you don't get the fruits of the work and of the labor of that. No judgment on it. No shade whatsoever if that's your choice. Just know, and what I've come to realize and know is that by accepting the mission and accepting that it's going to take work, and then accepting that all the times I fall down and the hard shit and all of the struggle part is just part of this. That also can be joyful because I know that's all part of this game, as part of this life. Then you get to really step into that higher self seat and wield things and have so much fun with it.
Totally. It is. It can be so much fun. Yeah. So where can people find you and connect with you and just learn more about this journey and how you help other people on their journeys?
I have a podcast as well that Emily's been on. So you can check out our episode that we did together on the Everyday Mystic. So you can go to the Everyday Mystic, find that on all your major podcast players and on YouTube. There's also a website, theeverydaymystic.org. On there, we also offer experiences to deepen your connection to your higher self, activate your soul in this lifetime so that you can live out a more fun, more fulfilling experience. And in the future, there will be retreats as well on there. So go to theeverydaymystic.org for that. And then I have a website, which is my name. It's CorissaSaintLaurent.com. And that houses the other aspects of me, that the other work that I do. So the consulting work I do, the speaking, and ways to connect with me in, I guess, through my other services. So check out all of that and connect with me anywhere and ask me anything. I'd love to be part of your journey.
Amazing. We'll make sure all of that is linked in the show notes. And you have such an open and inviting aura. I feel like people will connect with you and ask you anything.
I hope
There's
so.
just a genuineness and an openness in your energy that I find so appealing and so refreshing. So thank you for being you and sharing yourself so generously. And to conclude our episode, what has it felt like for you to be on your own joyous path to millions?
It feels liberating. It is that same feeling of going home, which is true freedom. That place of where you know that so much of your limitations have been self-limitations and that you have and hold the key to your own prison or to that game that you mentioned. And I've actually had that visual before of seeing myself holding a key. I'm the one.
You can use that key to lock yourself in, or you can use that key to unlock new levels you've never explored.
Exactly. And we all have the keys. So look into your heart, look into the depths of your being. And whether you're doing that through meditation or on a nature walk or just in silence with being with yourself, look in and you'll realize what those keys are. You'll realize what all of the ways at which you unlock the things that are locked up can happen. And so life is just a fun unlocking, right? You just go to all the doors, unlock, let everything out, let it all out. And some of the things you let out can be painful and hurtful, but they pass, they go through and they all happen. So the joyous path to millions is this unlocking of all of those doors to where you get to step into that beautiful castle. You get to step into this palace that is yours and of your own creation and finally get to receive that.
I'm obsessed with the visual. I love that answer so much. Corissa, thank you for coming on the show. To everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I just love Corissa's energy so much. I feel so at ease and relaxed when I'm with her. I just feel so much unconditional love. There's no judgment. And I think that's really a testament to all of the inner work that she has done. Make sure you go give her a follow. She's on Instagram at The Everyday Mystic, and you can tag us up. I'm at mmakesmoney and share your top takeaway from this episode. Here are mine. Number 1, connect to the divine. In whatever way that looks like to you, have that experience where you get to feel unconditional love from the creator or from the fabric of the universe. It's absolutely life-changing. Number 2, recognize where you've been numbing in whatever form, whether it's drugs, whether it's social media, whether it's food. Where have you been disconnecting and dissociating? And just get curious in a loving and compassionate way to understand why. Number 3, take the journey to align these two seemingly different identities of being the player and being the creator of the game. Number 4, you don't need ayahuasca unless you want it, which is fine, but understand that you can have these profound spiritual experiences and you can be on this healing journey in whatever way it looks like for you. And just through curiosity, through working with mentors and healers, you can peel back those layers and do the deep work that really ultimately sets you free. Which leads me to number 5, liberation and remembrance. To me, those are the overarching energetics of this episode, this journey of remembrance, this journey of liberation that we're all on. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for making this a top-rated global show. Thank you for sharing it with people who you think would benefit. And be sure to tune in next week. I've got another great episode for you. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Changing the way that we think, feel, and talk about money is up-leveling the planet. I truly believe that. The ripple effect starts with you tuning in, and it spreads when you share this show on Instagram and Facebook. You can tag me at mmakesmoney. And you know what moves the needle the most? Taking just a minute to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This show isn't free to produce, so let's multiply those dollars invested and help this show reach a bigger audience each week. So thank you in advance for your help. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'm sending you all the magic money vibes on your joyous path to millions.